They told me locker 44 was empty. They told me it had been sealed years ago. But last Monday, someone slid a note through the vent, and it had my brother's handwriting on it. I haven't seen him since 7th grade. You ever get that metallic taste in your mouth when your heart drops into your stomach? That's what it felt like when I unfolded the paper. Just one line. Don't open it again. I hadn't opened anything. But the thing is, I was already standing in front of locker 44 when I found the note. The hallway was empty. Dead silent. No footsteps, no chatter, no slamming lockers like usual. Just the buzz of old fluorescent lights and the hum of the radiator that hadn't worked since October. I stood there frozen, staring at the vents. It smelled like rust and something faintly sweet, like rotting fruit. I shoved the note into my pocket and looked around, hoping this was some elaborate prank. But the rest of the lockers were as lifeless as the hallway. When I leaned in close, I swear, I heard breathing behind the metal, and not my own. Now, let me explain something. My brother, Nate, disappeared 3 years ago. He was 13, I was 10. No fight, no goodbye, just gone after school. One moment we were walking home together. Next second, I blinked, and he wasn't there. They found his backpack in the woods behind the school, but nothing else. Everyone stopped talking about it after the first year, even my parents. But I couldn't. I couldn't let it go. Something inside me refused to believe he just ran away or got lost. I never said it out loud, but I always felt like he'd been taken. And now this? A note with his handwriting? I ran to the janitor's office, told Mr. Ortega what I found. He didn't say anything for a long time, just stared at me with these glassy, tired eyes. Finally, he said, "Locker 44 is welded shut, kid. Been that way since before you were even enrolled. Don't go messing around with things you don't understand." But here's the thing. I wasn't enrolled when Nate disappeared either. That night, I couldn't sleep. I pulled out every notebook Nate had ever written in, compared every letter, every curve, every slant. It was identical. It was his handwriting. And there was only one way to prove it. Go back and open that locker. Except it wasn't on any school map. Locker 43 skipped right to 45. Like 44 didn't exist. But I knew where it was. I'd stood in front of it. I'd heard it breathe. The next day, I got to school an hour early. I didn't even stop by my locker. I went straight to the far end of the east hallway, the old wing, where no one goes anymore. Where they keep the overflow lockers nobody uses. I counted carefully. 41, 42, 43. Then there was that strange gap. No label, just this tall, narrow metal door with peeling blue paint and a sticker that said, "Closed for repair," in faded marker. That was locker 44. I stared at it so long my vision started to blur. I kept thinking about the note. Don't open it again. Again. That word. Had someone already opened it? I pressed my ear against the cool metal. Nothing. But when I placed my palm flat against the center, I felt warmth, not like leftover sun or heat from the vents. This was body heat, like something alive on the other side. I should have walked away. Instead, I pulled out the screwdriver I stole from my dad's toolbox and began working at the top hinge. It wasn't easy. The metal groaned and shrieked with every turn, like it was screaming at me. But eventually, the top hinge gave, then the bottom. The door creaked outward, fighting me all the way. Inside, it was pitch black. No shelves, no hooks, no walls. Just a narrow tunnel receding into darkness. And the smell. It hit me like a wall. Wet earth, mildew, and something sour. I backed away, gagging. But even from a step back, I could still see it. A pair of muddy sneakers, tied together by the laces, like how Nate used to leave his in the mudroom. One of them had a familiar tear across the toe. I reached in and grabbed them without thinking. They were damp, cold, real. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped them. They landed with a dull thud on the floor. And then, from somewhere deep inside the tunnel, I heard a sound. Dragging. Not footsteps. Not rustling. Dragging. I slammed the locker shut and bolted. I didn't even try to reattach the hinges. I just ran. I don't even remember if I breathed. That whole day, I couldn't concentrate. The bell sounded like it was ringing underwater. Teachers' voices turned into muffled buzzing. My friend said I looked pale and dazed. But I couldn't explain. I didn't even want to try. That night, I laid the muddy sneakers on my bedroom floor and stared at them for hours. The smell still clung to them, like earth and rust. I couldn't bring myself to throw them away. I didn't know what to do. I went back the next morning. I told myself I wouldn't open it again. I just wanted to know if it was still there. If the tunnel had really been there, or if I'd imagined it. Maybe I had imagined it. Maybe it was just a bad dream after years of suppressed grief. But when I got there, Locker 44 looked different, like someone had tried to reseal it. The hinges were bolted back on, new bolts, shiny silver against the old paint. And someone had scratched a message into the metal right above the handle. 3 words, barely visible unless the light hit just right. He isn't alone. That message haunted me. He isn't alone. The words burrowed into my mind and nested there, repeating themselves over and over, like a cursed lullaby. I couldn't focus. I didn't eat. I stopped replying to messages. My friends joked that I was turning into a ghost myself, and they weren't wrong. A few nights later, around 2 a.m., I heard the knock. Not on my bedroom door, not on the front door. From the closet. It was soft, deliberate, rhythmic. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 more. I lay frozen in bed, covers pulled to my chin, eyes wide in the dark. My closet door was always closed. I made sure of it. But now it was cracked open just enough to show blackness beyond. And then, from the other side, I heard a voice. "Let me out!" My blood went cold. Not just scared, paralyzed. It was the voice that shattered something in me. Because it wasn't Nate's voice. It was mine. A perfect copy. Calm. Familiar. Patient. "Let me out," it said again, as if it knew I was listening. "You left me behind." I sat up, shaking. I wanted to scream, to run. But all I could do was stare. And then the closet creaked, and the door opened just an inch more. I slammed it shut so hard the frame splintered. Then I pushed my dresser in front of it and didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, I skipped school. I told my mom I was sick. She didn't argue. I knew I had to go back. Back to the locker. Back to the tunnel. I had to finish this. I packed a flashlight, gloves, my phone with a full charge, and a baseball bat, just in case. I didn't know what I was walking into. I only knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. The school was nearly empty by late afternoon. Janitors were finishing up, and no one paid me any attention. Locker 44 waited at the end of the corridor, sealed again, but this time I came prepared. It took me less than a minute to pry the door open. The tunnel was still there. This time I stepped in. Each footfall echoed. The air was stale, thick, and wrong. I walked for what felt like forever, my flashlight barely cutting through the blackness. Then the floor changed, hard to soft, stone to dirt, and the sound of breathing filled the tunnel. Not mine. Slow. Heavy. Just ahead. I raised the bat. When the tunnel opened into a chamber, I froze. The walls were covered in drawings, childish ones, stick figures, smiling faces, a house, a locker, and then I saw it. In the middle of the room was a shape, hunched, pale. It looked like Nate, but when he turned, his face was blank. Not expressionless, blank, no eyes, no nose, just smooth, stretched skin. And yet, somehow, it smiled. Not with a mouth, with presence. I stumbled backward, and it stood. Taller than Nate had ever been. Limbs too long. Neck too thin. It took a step toward me. "You remembered," it said in my voice. I ran. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. It followed me without sound, without effort, like it had always been right behind me. I burst into the light of the hallway and slammed the locker shut behind me. I wedged the bat through the handle and collapsed. Someone found me like that, curled up on the floor, trembling, clutching the bat like it could protect me from something that wasn't meant to exist. I never told anyone the full story, just that I had a breakdown, that grief finally got to me. But sometimes, late at night, I hear a knock, 3 knocks. Pause. 3 more. From the walls, from the pipes, from places where no one should be. And sometimes I dream about locker 44. And in the dream, I open it again. And there's no tunnel, just a mirror. And I'm not the one reflected in it. That was the first thought that slid into my brain like a cold coin down my spine. It wasn't fear, yet. It was confusion, then suspicion, then dread. The mirror had just appeared. A rectangular slab, maybe a meter tall, no frame, just glass. Fogged at the edges like it had always been there, but it hadn't. I knew it hadn't. And the worst part? It was inside the shower. Let me say that again. Not above the sink, not on the tiled wall beside it. It was inside the shower stall, directly across from the shower head, right where the steam collects thickest, and the glass should have cracked long ago from moisture. But it didn't. It just stayed. Smug. Silent. Perfectly fixed in place, as if the tiles had always made room for it. And that's when the real question began to sink in. Why would anyone want to watch themselves that closely while showering? I live alone. A 1-bedroom apartment on the east side, top floor. No roommates. No guests. My landlord's lazy and forgetful. But he's not the kind of guy who installs bathroom glass as a surprise upgrade. I would have noticed during the week. But I only noticed it Saturday morning, right after I stepped in, closed the curtain, turned the water on, and looked up. And there it was, the mirror. Now, I know this probably sounds like the start of a joke. Guy walks into a shower and finds a mirror. But there was nothing funny about the way it made me feel. That thing looked wrong. Not cracked, not bent, just wrong. Something about the way it reflected me. Not me exactly. The lighting felt a second behind. The way my hand moved when I reached up didn't match what I felt. And I could have sworn the corner of my mouth moved in the reflection before I smiled. I told myself I was tired, or stressed, or that I had finally reached the part of adulthood where showers become panic attacks with running water. But even then, I couldn't help it. I reached forward, touched it. Cold, not damp, not fogged. Cold, bone cold, like a window in mid-January. I finished my shower fast that day. Didn't wash my hair, didn't shave. I stepped out dripping and confused, water soaking the bath mat, and spent half the morning staring at that glass through the half-drawn curtain, wondering how it got there. By noon, I had texted my landlord. "Hey, did someone put a mirror in the shower? Pretty weird placement, just checking." No response. Then I tried to pull it off. Big mistake. My fingers barely slid around the edge before I felt it. The tiles weren't behind it. There was no gap. The mirror wasn't mounted. It was embedded, as if the wall had given birth to it. Seamless. Like it had always been part of the apartment. Like it had grown there. I stopped sleeping well after that. Over the next few days, little things changed. First, the lights in the bathroom flickered more. Then they didn't flicker. They dimmed. just in there, just around the mirror. I started showering with the curtain open, towel hanging nearby so I could grab it and bolt if I needed to. I stopped turning my back to the mirror, started showering sideways, stopped looking at it altogether. But no matter where I looked, I could feel it watching. The real tipping point came Wednesday morning. I was brushing my teeth, bathroom door open, steam still rising from the floor tiles, and in the mirror, not my reflection, but something behind me. Just a flicker, like a hand, not moving, just there. I spun around. Nothing. I checked every room, closets, front door, locked, windows, shut. No footprints on the wet floor. But when I went back into the bathroom, the mirror was dry, spotless, clean, no condensation, which was impossible because every surface in that room had fogged up, except that slab of glass, like it had somehow stayed immune to steam, as if it didn't belong in our atmosphere. That night, I dreamed of my own reflection smiling, only I wasn't. The reflection was, and its teeth were wrong. I stopped using the bathroom after that. Not just the shower, the whole thing. I started brushing my teeth in the kitchen, washing up at work. I even took my shaving kit to the gym down the street, just to avoid being alone with that mirror. But every time I walked past the door, it felt like the air shifted. Heavy, pressed in on the sides of my head, like something behind the door could hear my thoughts. Like it knew I was avoiding it, and didn't like that. Then came Friday. That morning, the light in the bathroom wouldn't turn on at all. No flicker, no hum, just darkness. I didn't bother checking the bulb. I didn't want to touch anything in there. But I had to pee, so I left the door open and used the light from the hallway. Halfway through, I heard something shift. It wasn't loud, just the soft, skin-on-glass sound of a fingertip tracing a circle. I froze, didn't move, then slowly turned my head. The mirror was glowing, not shining, glowing. A faint, blue-white pulse, like light bleeding from beneath the surface, like someone had lit a candle behind the glass. And in the center, just behind my faint reflection, a dark outline, a shoulder, a neck, a face, but it wasn't me. I zipped up with shaking hands, backed out of the room, and slammed the door shut. I stuffed a towel under the crack and locked it from the outside with the key I hadn't used in years. Then I sat on the couch for 2 hours, trying to convince myself I hadn't seen anything, that it was light pollution, sleep deprivation, a shadow. But deep down, I knew. Something was inside that mirror. I didn't go to work that day. I called out sick and spent the morning Googling things like mirror hallucinations, reflection distortion, and mirror ghosts' true story. I got a lot of horror movie trailers and forum posts, written by people who sounded just as paranoid as I felt. Then, one thread caught my eye. Don't let it talk to you. Don't ask it anything. Don't let it answer. The post was from 2013. The user deleted. No replies, no context. But the part that stuck with me was, once it knows your name, it's harder to leave. I shut my laptop and didn't open it again that day. Around sunset, I heard it again. Not tapping this time, not scratching, whispering. Not words, just sounds. Breathy vowels like the wind through lips. The kind of whisper that makes the hair on your arms rise before your ears even register the sound. I turned on every light in the apartment. Sat in the kitchen. Waited. I didn't dare sleep in my bed because it was too close to the bathroom. So I laid out a blanket on the living room floor and stared at the ceiling, hands clamped to my chest like a child waiting for morning. Around 3 a.m. I dozed off, and that's when it spoke. I didn't hear it with my ears. I heard it inside my head. My name, just my name. Whispered once, software gentle, but wrong, off-key, like it didn't belong in a human mouth, I shot upright. My whole body felt like a battery. Static rolled across my scalp, and my skin burned cold with sweat. And even though I didn't hear footsteps, I knew the bathroom door was open. I knew the mirror was exposed. I didn't want to look, but I had to. I crept toward the hall, heart pounding like a fist against a wooden door, and peeked around the corner. The door was still shut. The towel was still there. The lock still turned. But I could feel something on the other side. Waiting, not pounding, not rattling, smiling. The next morning, I did something reckless. I opened the door. I don't know what I was expecting. Some explosion of cold air, a scream, a face pressed up against the glass. But there was nothing. Just the bathroom, dimly lit by weak daylight. My toothbrush still in the cup. The mirror looked normal, clean, untouched. No scratches, no fog, no glowing. Just the faint outline of me, sleep-deprived and pale, standing slack-jawed at the threshold. I stepped in like a man stepping onto ice he doesn't trust. My eyes never left the mirror. I reached up slowly and pressed my finger to the glass. Nothing. No cold. No warmth. Just a smooth surface as it should be. I stood there for maybe 5 minutes, heart racing, trying to decide if I was completely losing my mind or if something had genuinely happened. I needed confirmation. Something tangible. So I turned on my phone's video recorder, set it on the sink facing the mirror, and hit record. Then I walked out and closed the door behind me. I waited. 15 minutes passed, then 20. Finally, I went back in. Nothing had changed. The mirror looked the same. I stopped the recording. My hands were shaking as I played it back. The footage started out normal. Just an empty bathroom, a still mirror, faint hum of the fan. Then, 5 minutes in, there was a flicker. Just for a second, a blink. A shape, faint and shadowy, passed behind the reflection. Not in the room, in the mirror. A tall shape, unclear. Slender arms, a head that tilted like it was listening. Then gone. No sound, no jump scare. Just there. And then, not. I dropped the phone. I must have watched that clip 20 times. I even uploaded it privately to a backup account just in case. I didn't know what to do with it. Who do you call? What do you even say? Hey, my mirror has a ghost in it and it whispered my name? I didn't want attention. I didn't want explanations. I just wanted it to stop. I taped a blanket over the mirror that night, the thickest I could find. I duct taped every corner, made sure no light or reflection could get through. I still heard the whisper. This time, it wasn't just my name. It said, "I remember you." And it wasn't in my head this time. I knew because my dog, my sweet, cowardly terrier, started barking like the devil himself had stepped into the hallway. He was growling at the door, ears flat, tail down, hackles raised like he was staring straight at something I couldn't see. Then he whimpered and ran into the bedroom, tail between his legs. I didn't sleep. I didn't move. By the third night, the mirror started dripping. Not like condensation, like blood. Dark streaks ran down the surface, soaking into the edge of the blanket. I pulled the cover off, thinking I was hallucinating, but it vanished the second I looked. The mirror was clean. I ran. Left the apartment with nothing but a backpack and a leash. I didn't go to work. I didn't call friends. I just drove. I didn't even have a destination, just a need to go. Eventually, I wound up at my sister's place. I hadn't seen her in months, but she let me crash on the couch without asking too many questions. I told her I was dealing with stress, that I'd had a bad few weeks. She offered to call a therapist. I agreed. But I knew deep down, this wasn't something a therapist could fix. Because that night, while I was brushing my teeth in her hallway bathroom, I glanced up and saw it again. The mirror. Not glowing, not bleeding, but in the reflection behind me, just barely, just at the edge of my vision. A smile. Not mine. Something else. Something still there. Watching. Waiting. And when I turned around, nothing. Just me. My toothbrush. And a clean, blank mirror.